The date is February 24th, 2019, I believe. Am I correct? It's today? Yes. And all of a sudden, at First Universalist Church, a large blue box lands down.
Oh my goodness! It's a T.A.R.D.I.S! I have heard that these things are machines, boxes that can travel in time and space. Some signs stand upright.
It's a very mysterious box.
It's a very mysterious box. It's a very finicky magic box.
So now that it's landed down, what do you guys think? Should we go in it for a ride?
Haven't you always wondered what the future of Universalism would look like? I know I have.
I know I have too.
Let's close our eyes and go in. It is bigger on the inside.
And I believe we've arrived. Let's step outside. Oh my gosh, it's February 24th, 2039. 20 years into the future. I wonder what we're going to see here at First Universalist Church and what the future of Universalism is going to look like.
Let's sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah, let's chat about it. Have a seat.
Let's have a chat.
So this morning, in thinking through how to talk about the future of Universalism, Reverend Michelle and I thought we'd have a conversation around 3 different questions. The first of which is, what do you think the future of Universalism will be theologically? What is the future of Universalist theology? What do you think, Michelle?
I think we spent most of our history as Universalists thinking about what happens after we die, as far as universal salvation. But I think in the next 20 to 50 years, we're going to be really focusing more on now. If we are all loved, if we are all important, then what does that really mean in having a lived faith? I certainly have seen this in the past 10, 20 years. I feel like when I was young as a Universalist, it was kind of like we all just did our little thing in our church. But the level of activism and of looking inside and seeing, I think we missed it on that one. We need to do better on this. We need to show up for that. We need to live this belief that everyone is important and should be included in better and better ways. It is really going to come to the forefront of our lives and of our faith communities, of what we do day to day.
I think some of what we've been talking about in here recently is we've been looking at Universalist theology in the present day and seeing that this belief in universal salvation and this belief that all people are going to go to a good place when they die and that no one is going to be judged or going to hell is becoming a part of our mainstream Christianity. And so I wonder about the Universalism, what our unique contributions will be to Universalism moving forward. And I think that what we have to offer, certainly as a faith community, is having folks from a diversity of theological backgrounds that can bring multiple perspectives to Universalism. So we certainly have folks in this room right now who are theists. We have folks who are atheists, folks who would identify with Judaism, folks who would identify with Christianity, with Islam, with Buddhism, with Hinduism, like we heard about this morning. So we have folks here that have multiple different belief systems and sort of theologies. And I wonder, I'm excited to see what that will look like in the future. And I think that's really the future of our brand of Universalism, is having some of those more an interfaith Universalism and a deeper dialogue on that, a deeper dialogue, getting together and really talking about what we believe together.
So what do you think, Lane, as far as the future of this church, of our church, and of Unitarian Universalism as a denomination?
Well, I think certainly the future is, like, we're making it right now, right here. And I think that in the future, in the present, church has to look different than it has, right? And we have to think about what is our faith going to look like in the future? Because for the church that I grew up in, was informed a lot by sort of this 1950s structure of, everybody had Sunday free. everybody's life was sort of focused around having Sunday as a day off, that Sunday was a day that you go to church. And now, from the last 5 years of working with families, Sundays aren't always free for church. I mean, many of the families that I worked with, we were battling against hockey practice for a good few years, or even just like time to be with your family. And so I think, the future of church, we have to think about how we're going to be relevant and why people come to church. Like, what is our unique contribution, and what do we need to do outside of Sunday mornings? Although I will say Sunday mornings are, of course, very important to me. And I'm sure you all, because you're here, right? But I wonder what it's going to look like to be sort of a both-and faith community, of focusing on Sundays and focusing sort of throughout the week. How do we make opportunities for people to plug in? And I certainly have a fear or a concern that for the future of Universalism, I don't want our Universalist history and our roots to get lost. I don't want us to get too far away from the traditions and the roots that we are built upon, because they are so beautiful and so important. So what do you think?
I would also be concerned about, how do we continue to include everyone as we go forward? Because people don't need to come here for socialization and community. They can get that in many other places. But what makes church unique from all those other places? In my community of young adults, what they are willing to get out of bed early for and show up for are ways that they can make a difference in people's lives and in the world. They're not just going to be a pedestrian looking at things, but to be active and engaged. And to find ways of what does it mean to be a member? What does it mean to be part of a church community beyond Sunday mornings? Maybe I feel like sometimes when families walk in the door, we all should stand up and give a round of applause, because I really appreciate what it takes to get many members together and out the door and into this building somewhere near 10:30.
With all their shoes on, right?
With all the shoes, yes. And so how do we do church? How do we do faith and action where everyone is a part of it? And I think we might be looking outside of the box for ways to make those moments happen, ways to make community and church and faith and action a part of our lives. Because certainly we've already evolved away from the Sunday school of the past. I think we've achieved the vision of Sophia Lyons-Foz of an interactive, experiential learning experience for our kids. But how do we do that going forward?
More to come, huh? And so the last question we wanted to talk about this morning was sort of, what's the future of Universalism as it informs our social justice efforts? Where do you think that'll be in 20 years?
I think it's very interesting the ways in just the past 10 years we've been showing up. I feel like there was the civil rights era, and then there was a bit of a slowdown. And then suddenly we've had a big ramp up with the yellow shirts. The UUs are known as the yellow shirts when we show up to rallies and events and social justice action things, because we have our, was the Standing on the Side of Love shirt. What the new ones?
Side of Love.
Side of Love. Side of Love. And how do we live that? How do we show up in that way? And I think in some ways it's being more brave than we were before. Because I think sometimes there's still that concern of, if I show up to this rally, am I safe? And if I show up to this rally, is my family safe? Are people going to judge me? But finding a courage and a resolve for ourselves of, this is where I need to be. I felt a conviction when we did the social justice GA in Phoenix. Like, this is history. This is the moment I want to say to my children that I was there. And that moment of, this is the moment. And it might be hard, but I want to say that I was there, that I showed up. And doing this work here so that we can show up out there.
Certainly, that Social Justice General Assembly was in Phoenix, and it was taking action around immigration, particularly. And it was a time when our whole denomination showed up in droves to get to take action around some of the inhumane immigration policy that we have in this country. So, for me, I would say that Universalism and this idea of love being at the center of the justice work that we do is so key. I would say when I first got involved in activism in my own life, I was very angry. And I was very self-righteous. And I was like, you know, these people should be doing something differently. Why aren't they doing things differently? And I'm seeing now an evolution in embracing more love at the center of our justice movements, more healing language at the center of our justice movements, realizing that to be involved in social justice is also to be exposed to trauma, and to be exposed to generational trauma, and how do we heal some of the generational trauma that particularly marginalized communities experience, and also how do we heal the generational trauma that privileged communities experience as well. And so I'm seeing a lot of sort of love and healing, and I feel like our faith has something. I mean, certainly faith communities can bring the spirit to justice communities and help us to make our justice efforts sustainable. Because I think probably in 2039, we're still going to be fighting a good fight and still planting some seeds for the next generation and planting some seeds for the next generation. I kind of look forward to seeing in 2039, where are we going to be sort of on the leading edge, and what's going to be pushing my comfort zone? And how am I going to feel challenged to show up? And how is this call to love deeper going to continue to transform us and invite us into a deeper sense of justice? So thank you for joining us in 2039. I believe if you close your eyes and hop back into the TARDIS with us. I believe we are back in 2019, and thank you for joining us for the conversation.